versus Llama Cleave.
Yeah, so as you said, that if they do want to go for it, they definitely can do that. I mean, it's like they can obviously proc that out, then get the defreeze a couple seconds later because it doesn't DR with the charge stun. So that's something they can do, but it adds a lot of kind of additional moving parts, if you want to say, to that, because as soon as they proc dematerialize, Danny is going to know that they're probably going to try to go on him. He can play a little bit safer, a little bit more defensively for a couple seconds, and dematerialize is going to be right back up. And if you miss time that at all, you're going to completely waste your deep. So anyway, here they go. Novoz going to be charging on in. We do see that that in-cap coming right out onto Smexxin. And Smexxin, is just going to be able to sit through that. He didn't want to Zerker Rage and waste that. And Dannycarey is going to get feared up. He's going to be popping his will immediately on that. And Novoz is going to be just trying to heal up Thugonomics a little bit here. Thugonomics was taking quite a bit of damage, honestly, and is going to have to port back. Smexxin has all his cooldowns popped, actually. Recklessness and everything is up, and he is just going hard onto Thugonomics. But honestly, it looks like Smexxin is kind of, his team is taking the worst end of the exchange, even though they do have all their cooldowns popped right now. Alds is getting relatively low there. Does get death coiled off, and we do see that he's down about half HP, but it looks like he's going to be fine for now, and the pressure kind of turning right back around onto Thugonomics as there was a paralyze onto Novoz.
That Demon's Soul coming out with a Chaos Bolt. First one is going to connect onto Verdantstorm, but he is already way out of town right now. Thug having to choose to fall back right now, and you can see how offensive that Smexxin is playing, which is kind of crazy considering, stereotypically you can try to burst a warrior down when they push deep into the pillars.
Yeah, you definitely can. And we do see that Thugonomics is still just going to be the target. It looks like they just want to train him start to finish. And I mean, he is having a lot of trouble getting the damage out that he needs to get. You can see that backlash proc coming up. He's going to have to pop his healing cooldowns already. And at the same time, he is going to get top back up pretty quickly with that. But having burned through those cooldowns relatively early and just kind of struggling to get that damage out. But at the same time, I mean, one good swap to the mage or that warrior. Oh my God, look at that! Wow. That's what I was talking about. The damage coming in there burst him down to 40k HP.
Wow, that was crazy. That double Chaos Bolt is just insane damage. I mean, we had Ald targeted, and he went from full to 40k like instantly. That was crazy. All right, so Smexxin is still going to be sitting on to Thugonomics. Thug having some issues casting, but he knows that. You can see exactly. He's very aware of when the warrior is going to be able to interrupt him. And trying to fake. Trying to get those casts out constantly, not using Havoc when he knows he's going to be interrupted.
Yep, definitely, and that is a very good way to do it. We can see that he is getting that damage out when it counts, but we do see that pummel coming out from Smexxin, which is just going to give him the root interruption glyph buff, which is honestly very smart to be playing that against two casters that are going to be using hard cast a lot. You can have it basically up 100% of the time, and it gives you 5% additional damage, which is actually quite a lot. And there's the death coil coming in Smexxin. He has to be a little bit careful here. May need to trigger this. He does trigger that leg sweep, but it's too late perhaps. Oh, we do see that shadow burn coming in there, and that was into the shield wall. That was very close to being a kill. And although the constant pressure is definitely heavily in the favor of this Llama Cleave, you can see just one wrong move can net you a kill.
Yeah, this is a tough time for Smexxin right now, charging in to try to interrupt that Chaos Bolt as its shield wall does fall. So they burned a lot of defensive cooldowns out of Smexxin with that last Chaos Bolt.
Yeah, they did, man. And it was the death coil into the leg sweep, and no way he can prevent that besides the trinket. And holding it through that death coil was definitely risky. But we are seeing Ald take quite a bit of damage here himself. The knockback onto Smexxin. He did have that ring of peace up on him. Interesting that he is playing that. They have a lot of stuns, so it definitely makes sense to have that additional silence in instead of playing with the leg sweep themselves. But obviously we are going to have Dannycarey playing with the leg sweep, and Smexxin taking a lot of damage here. He is going hard onto Thugonomics. The death coil's back up though. The death coil out of this leg sweep could be the end for him. We'll see if it's going to happen. The death coil not coming out just yet. The reflect does go up. Thugonomics taking a lot of damage himself. Has to port out of there. Heal and cooldown are used immediately again as he does get back across, but I'm not sure the cooldown on that gateway. He may be able to get back over to that, and we'll see if he's going to be able to and just try to get out of there.
Another Chaos Bolt coming out right now. No way to interrupt it, as it is going to land on Ald's right there. Ald's getting super low right now. Looks like he might have a while on his block. He may have cold snapped and not used the second block yet. I didn't catch that off screen, but he did take a lot of damage in the prior Havoc. So we'll have to see if he has another block yet. We do see a fear onto Dannycarey, who just sits at because he does not have a trinket and does not have a will up at the moment.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't, and that is a bit of a scary position for him to be in. Without that will up, without that trinket up, you start to get a little bit nervous when those CCs do land, especially because Thugonomics is taking so much pressure consistently throughout this game, and that's one of the strengths of Mage Warrior. Their damage doesn't really stop. Their cooldowns are very frightening, but even outside of the cooldowns, their damage is huge. And now the orb does come out. Thugonomics just going to gate across the map very intelligently. You just do not want to sit in that gateway, or rather that orb, unless you really have to. But all getting in Shadowburn range, and he is going to get cleaned up there. Recklessness and everything was popped by Smexxin, but it's not going to matter. And that is the damage that is so frightening from Blacksmith hammers. And I mean, honestly, coming out of that game, I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit as to why they thought that matchup was going to be so hard for them. It didn't look that bad.
It really didn't. We did see that Smexxin was playing that stun spec, being able to lock down with the shockwave, and we saw him throw out a couple of those storm bolts. But check this out, the damage on Dannycarey. Like we know that it's very when you toss your Tiger out and there's just lightning everywhere, it's just adding up that dot constantly, which will break any of those on break damage CC. But this comp really doesn't have any except for the Monk's Paralyzed, so he's going to be able to toss out a lot of damage. And I mean, he had 1.6 million damage, and you compare that to his Thug, which tossed out a ton of damage, only did 5 million. So you look at, that's a large gap, but not that much when you're thinking about the course of an entire fight.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and Monk really is the only healer that can kind of put out that level of consistent DPS. Crackling Jade Lightning, extremely strong. Zwen, as you already pointed out, extremely strong. Even blackout kicks, which you don't really see as much anymore, but you can, if you jab before getting that blackout kick, costs a ton of mana, so that's why people don't really do it so much. But that kind of had been, especially at the start when no one really knew what the heck was going on with monks, people were doing that a lot and getting some big crits. And people would just fall over and you're just like, what
happened? Scrolling up the combat log, 60k blackout,
exactly.
what?
So turns out they can actually put out quite a bit of damage, and Dannycarey showcasing that, but and it really, one of the kind of cool things about that is that it kind of bridges the gap in one of the weaknesses of their comp, which is consistent pressure, because when you're playing Destro, you really do lack that consistent pressure. But the fact that you have that monk adding in, an additional 1.6 or whatever million it was, it kind of is making the difference between an Affliction Warlock and a Destro Warlock that much smaller as far as consistent pressure goes. So definitely really well played.
Yeah, I loved that they forced so many defensive cooldowns out of Smexxin, but you didn't even see it on screen when Alds was taking that damage. A lot of the times it was the Havoc Chaos Bolts, that really tossed the damage in.
Yeah,
awesome.
The second match between Blacksmith Hammers Equip and Llama Cleave is right now.
And it is going to be on Dalaran Sewers. Of course, Blacksmith Hammer up 1-0 over this Llama Cleave. Like they said, Novoz was just worried about this comp too, so we'll have to see if they can come back from this. Now, this map choice, of course, like we were saying before, gateways on this map aren't that strong. You can't reliably use them in the center with the waterfall that comes down, so you're kind of stuck to using the bottom, as your gateway position.
You can put it up top, but you have to do a kind of angled one, so the distance is just not very much. And the fact of the matter is, a warrior doesn't even really have to leave. They can just charge right back to you as you gateway. The distance it gives you is just not very much. So we'll see how it's going to work out for them here. Smexxin going to be getting right over onto Thugonomics, and Thugonomics does not have a port in a good spot because he has to get that gateway down. That's one of the other things that kind of makes it tough on this map, but he's going to gateway now. We are going to see that leap come in, and he's going to be right back onto him. Thugonomics could be in a lot of trouble here. The Life Cocoon already having to come out here. As Smexxin, he hasn't even popped his cooldowns yet, and they've already got through a lot.
Already having that gateway, already using the Life Cocoon. Those are two pretty big cooldowns for this team. Thug is going to be, hurting until he can use his port yet again, which is going to be back up in a couple of seconds, so that's good. Ald's actually having to trinket. He hasn't used anything massively defensive yet.
Thug relayed his port though, man. He could be in a lot of trouble here if they pop cooldowns on him, and I think he will be. He never re-dropped that portal. I think he forgot about it. His port's still over in the other corner, and Thug could actually just die as a result of this. He's getting huge heals from Dannycarey right now, but he was dipping down very, very low. And it looks like they have finally recognized that he doesn't have a portal. Now he does re-drop that, but a bit of a scary moment is he was getting hit very, very hard there by Ald and Smexxin, and I think he probably tried to press a button, realized he didn't have one, and had to relay that.
Look at that. Ald's taking so much damage and actually forcing the Life Cocoon when he was completely out of line of sight. The first Chaos Bolt landed, the second one landed as he was dropping out of line of sight down there. So, that was a questionable Life Cocoon there. He kind of was safe at that point because Novoz and Thug were pretty far back.
Yeah, definitely. But it's one of those things. Once again, you see all that damage coming in. It's just a panic thing. You just hit the button, and Thugonomics taking that pressure right now. The nice knockback comes out from Novoz, trying to peel him off as the shockwave did hit too. The full sheep comes out onto Dannycarey though. Can they get anything rolling with this? Thugonomics is taking a lot of damage now, and you even see the Crackling Jade Lightning coming in there from Verdantstorm, who's been spamming out so much mana offensively. I mean, look at his mana. He's down at 14k versus the 180k or so of Dannycarey, and I mean that's really showing with how aggressive he's getting with that. Smexxin puts into the leg sweep, and he's going to get Crackling Jade Lightning. The Chaos Bolt does come in. He's in a lot of trouble. He has to shield wall. May just die through it. Went down to 30k.
Wow.
As that damage is already in the air, it's not going to be reduced by that shield wall, and that's something you have to be very careful about. When it's these massive burst type comps.
Yeah, now Smexxin's going to push right back in. That Demon Soul definitely caused a lot of cooldowns, which was great out of Thug. So let's see if they can follow something up with that. As they do kill the Water Elemental, that was a smart move, not having a good viable target at that point. So just shut down a little bit of the Maid's just future damage. Capacitor Totem does come down and stun Alds, able to blink out of that, but Novo's taking a lot of damage. There comes the second Life Cocoon right on top of that orb. So much damage out of the Frost Mage.
Yeah, and Thug did get his gate back up top, but important to note, he did not do the angled gateway. So when the waterfall is down, like you said, Jared, he's not going to be able to use it, and that could come into play. I mean, it could end up costing them. It is a bit more distance, so when the waterfall is down, it's definitely the better gateway, but it's only going to be available for a portion of that time. So we'll see how they're going to be able to deal with that. Smexxin taking a little bit of damage there, and as you see, the Root Interruption glyph, that kind of Night Elf face is basically always up on him. He's always having that, which is very, very important. It means he's hitting his pummels, and he's constantly having that damage buff, just putting out that additional DPS. But the leg sweep is going to come in on Smexxin. Are they going to try to turn it around onto him with this? No, it looks like they're just going to use that to free cast onto Ald. It was getting chunked down pretty hard, but Verdantstorm already pre-healing that damage out, and it looks like he's going to be just fine with that. The gateway does come in now, and it looks like maybe all of them are going to try to gate across here. Zwen has been popped as well.
We see that was a disarm onto Smexxin when he did have that Ring of Peace. He is going to try to stay offensive onto Novoz right now with the orb on top of Novoz. But Novoz seems to be doing okay, kiting back a little bit and even getting time to toss out some Elemental Blast, but really didn't do too much damage. We see that Hex come out onto Ald right now. It looks like they are still going to try to be killing Smexxin, it does look like. Although, no, Thug choosing to change his target and trying to get some damage onto Ald.
Yeah, and I mean, I think either of those choices are definitely worthwhile. We see Smexxin, he doesn't have a shield wall still, but he does have that trinket, which is extremely important because if he's not CC'd, he's going to be able to break up a lot of the damage. And we see that the big burst opportunities come in on Smexxin when he's in the leg sweeps into the coils. So that's really what he has to look out for rather. And keeping that trinket is extremely important for them. The double shockwave going to land onto Thug and Novoz. They're going to be stuck up in that for a little bit. Dannycarey put into the deep freeze. We see the dematerialize there, but just not. Oh wow, the sheep does come in anyway. Oh my god, Thugonomics getting so low, and Dannycarey doesn't have a PvP trinket. This could be it if they have any follow-up CC, but it does not look like they do. Will it matter? Anyway, the Ember Taps come out, the healing cooldowns come out as well from Thug, and that's going to make, look at him playing Pac-Man behind the pillar. There was like 6 orbs there with the Mastery plus the regular orbs, and he heals right back up to full. A nice spell reflect on the first Chaos Bolt though from Smexxin, who's able to get that up before the leg sweep came in, but he is split up from Verdantstorm, and Verdantstorm is basically right now. I'm not sure how many Manatee stacks he has, but he's going to need to get away and start using some of those.
All right, Smexxin still in a little trouble, down to half right now. Still have a while on his shield wall. He is going to have Rallying Cry up in a second, and there goes the next Life Cocoon onto Smexxin, so he's going to be getting a lot more healing out of those hots on him, as Novoz did have to trinket just a minute ago, so he's not going to have that to get out of any of the stuns. Probably going to see a Shockwave right here, as he does have 2 targets. Might already be down, though, however. That would have been the entire team right there, as Smexxin, like you said, constant Root Interruption glyph.
Yeah, he's doing such a good job with that, and not only is hitting all 3 members just inherently good, but if you hit all 3 members with that shockwave, you get the 20-second reduced cooldown on it, meaning your stun's gonna be up that much sooner. Also very, very important. The spell reflect goes up, the die by the sword as well for that 20% damage reduction. Novoz taking some significant heat himself, but Verdantstorm just constantly sitting low in mana, which always makes me a little bit nervous. But it's one of those things where monks can afford to kind of sit low mana as long as they have those T stacks. They're not actually.
He definitely has. It looks like he is getting low. He is now almost out of mana T stacks right now. But that did give him back a third of his mana, so they're about equivalent mana right now. But hard to say if Danny does a really good job at maintaining his mana T. Out of all the Mistweavers I watch, he definitely is the most inherent, like watching his mana the entire time.
Yeah, and I mean Verdantstorm sits down for the drink, so mana no longer an issue at all. He gets about 100,000 back with that drink, so it was a well played there. Recognizing he did have the time to do that. And that's definitely a team effort too. Forcing them back. Putting themselves in a good spot. But the Lake Sweep coming in on Smexxin is going to force that trinket as the Chaos Bolt was being channeled down. That's what we talked about. The trinket's so important to have for that, because it doesn't matter if you have Shield Wall up, it doesn't matter if you have Blast Stand Up. If you die 100-0 in a Lake Sweep to a coil, guess what? You don't get to use them. So he's going to have to be extra careful now with that PvP trinket down. But it seems like they're comfortable to go aggressive. The capstun comes in. We do see that coil coming out as well. There was actually an in-cap, but all mages go down. Oh my god, that block came out just at the last second. The Shadowburn was actually cast by Thugonomics, but it went into the immune. It was almost the exact same time, and that was a close call.
It really was. Now, we saw Thunder Focus Tea used on a gigantic heal earlier by Verdantstorm, so he's not going to have that Aura Mastery for his class to be able to use in case Smexxin needs some huge heals. Now, Thugonomics down to half right now, and look at that instant. Dark Vigen pops himself back up to full, has that backlash ready to keep generating those embers. Here comes another Chaos Bolt, as it is going to be, I believe it was LOS right there, not able to cast. So let's see if he can connect with anything, but Thug's taking some pretty consistent damage right here, as it looks like we are going to have the Tiger out.
And I'm not sure why Danny isn't willing that fear. I mean, he just decided he had the will up. There's nothing else for him to will. He had a full fear setting on him, and he decided not to will it. And now he's going to go straight into the sheep off that. So a bit of a puzzling play there from Dannycarey, and it's seeming like it could end up costing them. Thugonomics is down dangerously low, 100k, 90k HP, and he's going to go down.
That was
and the cooldowns came out from all. You see that trinket icy veins up. You see the orb coming out, and I'm not sure, just maybe kind of spaced out a little bit there or what, but I mean, there's nothing else for him to will, so it's not like it's a choice between a Wyvern Sting and a fear or what. But it was a full intimidating shout. He didn't will it. He then went into deep freeze off that into the sheep, and had he willed right away, he might have been able to LOS that deep freeze the poly, with like obviously they could have transcendence, like pour it out or roll it or incap or something. So that's just not a mistake that you see Dannycarey making very often. He's a very, very consistent player, and that's one of the reasons that they do so well is because they play something so tanky. They don't make glaring errors that you can capitalize on. But that was definitely one that I'm sure he'd like to have back.
All right. Yeah. I mean, you look at the damage done. Both Verdant and Danny tossing in some damage this time. Danny was up to 2.4 million this time, but it was a longer match, so we did have 12 million out of Smexxin, who, I mean, he was constantly on the target. Even the few times he had to pull back and play defensive, that was it. Those were the only times, and then he was full time on Thugs nonstop.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be very important for Blacksmith Hammer Equip that they won the first match, because the advantage there, as I always say, is you only have to win on your map choices. It's such a huge advantage, because even if it's a team that you struggle against, like for me, if I was in Thugonomics spot, I would not want to play on sewers. I would not want to play on runes. Those are two maps I'm saying, screw that. Right. And now winning on the Grand Arena means they can lose on the other picks. It doesn't matter. They did lose on sewers, but they're never going to have to go to runes. They have their map pick now.
Which is
my guess is it's probably Tolvaron.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. Because it's like, if one team wants the smallest map, then you want the biggest map. And Tolvaron gives you the best possible gateway.
It's all tied up right now going into the match. Blacksmith Hammers Equip versus Llama Cleave.
Yeah, so I think we're going to see them really try to spread it out a lot more on this map. That really does put a lot of help. Gives the advantage to Thugonomics and Novoz, I should say, because when you get that massive 60-yard gateway, the full range gateway, it's so much more effective than it is on those smaller maps. And I mean, the fact of the matter is, you start to spread out the other team a lot. As Verdant is running through the middle, and as Ald and Smexxin are chasing after Thugonomics, that opens them up to being teed off on by Novoz. If they're just going to run straight at Thugonomics, Novoz can just post up in the middle of the map and just press lightning bolt a lot. It's like you can do a lot of damage. So it's something you got to be careful of, and they're going to get that perfect gateway that we talked about. So already, I like the position a lot more on this map for them.
See, there we go. Now an instant will out of Danny right there. Novoz was going to be blanket counterspelled, as we do see the deep freeze on to Danny also. Real short one as he sits the whole thing. Not too much damage coming out quite yet, even though we do see wreck coming out from Smexxin.
Wow, did he already pop it? That's a little bit surprising. I mean, that he did get it out that early, but I guess they just felt like they had the CC they needed, and they should just get it out there. The Lake Sweep does come in onto Smexxin, though. The Paralyze comes out onto Verdantstorm. Both going to be able to sit through those. So some important plays there from them. Not having used any trinkets or anything early. They did force out the will from Dannycarey, but really that's all they got in exchange for recklessness, as you said. So that's not a great trade for them. And Thugonomics, Novoz, and Dannycarey are looking to be in a pretty solid spot. We're going to have to see, what all can get done as far as CC goes on Dannycarey here, because a lot of it's going to really be up to him. The intimidating shout is always going to be able to be willed. There's the Hex though coming out onto Ald. There's no second decurse, and can be coming in onto Smexxin. Is reflected nicely though by him.
All right, now Smexxin tried to stay on his target, does reach over and kill that stream totem, stopping that extra little healing. Smexxin is just having trouble right now getting to his target. We did see a lot of ports, a lot of roots, as we do see the dematerialize was just procced by a deep freeze right there. So it's possible that they're going to set up for some CC onto Danny in a little bit, but they only have that 10-second window, which is almost up right now. Smexxin definitely the target, but look at this, Ald, so much damage coming out from him as we see a leg sweep on top of him, trying to bait the blink, but he is going to have to block out of that. That was a pretty good CC chain from Danny to help his team out.
Yeah, got really aggressive, saw him blinked in there, caught up to him with the rolls, and landed that leg sweep, allowing Novoz to solo force that block basically. And when you called it out, Ald was looking for the poly out of that deep, but he couldn't get it because Novoz broke it up. And we'll see if they're going to be able to land this one. The deep freeze does come in. There's the MCS off it. Thugonomics may just go down here. Popping those healing cooldowns very, very late there is Thugonomics. He was down about 90k before he got him up, but Dannycarey thankfully is going to be able to orb him right back to full. But Novoz is caught in the sheep and was out of LOS, but is going to be able to path around to Dannycarey, who will be able to pop him back out. And Verdantstorm starting to use some of those key stacks a lot earlier this time. You can see him trying to get them mana back up to more reasonable level.
Yeah, and I mean that's something that with the possibility of this match going so long like the last one, it's something that they're going to have to pay attention to the mana. Verdantstorm hitting that Thunder Focus T right there for a large heal coming out onto his team as he is going to be tossing those spheres out. And look at that, yeah, when you see the mana bar of a Mana T just extremely long, that means he has a ton of stacks left.
Yeah, so definitely a good tip to know there. It's something I actually didn't know. I didn't know that the duration was affected with that. But that's a second CS in a row onto Smexxin from Thugonomics. So I think maybe his macro is messed up or he has the wrong focus target or something. But not the biggest of deals in a long game, but definitely not something you want to be happening consistently either. And he is going to be taking quite a bit of damage here. Ald was put into the Hex. We do see the Fear coming in onto Verdant. He feels comfortable to sit through that, though not going to blow the will or anything. Deep Freeze out on Dannycarey. Thugonomics going to be taking a lot of damage here. His MCS Life Cocoon has to come out there.
Wow, Ald's just got absolutely wrecked. That Stormlash Totem comes down. Novoz doing as much damage as possible. I mean, this was even with Thug having Smexxin on his back. You saw him fake once, cast that fear, making sure he doesn't have anything else up, and then instantly drop some damage on him.